We can all rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the August meeting of the Philipstown Town Board. And before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge that we have the county executive here this evening, Kevin Byrne, as well as the Deputy Emergency Services Coordinator, Ralph Falloon, and we have our county legislator here, Nancy Montgomery. How are you? Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So let's get right into the meeting. Approval of minutes, monthly meeting, July 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Committee reports, Conservation Board.
Conservation Board, it was held on July 11th at 7:30 p.m. It was a rare and short one. 2 items of business, 1040 East Mountain Road, just seeking a permit for grading an area for a fire permit. There's a minor permit approved. Second area of business is Hudson Highlands Land Trust was updating the Conservation Board on the fact that they are beginning to clean up the former Staff Farm parcel, a 90-acre parcel with 26 cabins. The Conservation Board's planning a site visit. The next meeting of the Conservation Board is this upcoming Tuesday, 7:30.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Thank you, Conservation Board. Recreation.
Good evening. The Philipstown Recreation Commission met on Tuesday, July 25th. Philipstown Recreation remains in full summer camp mode over the next couple of weeks, and all age groups remain at capacity, though we have been fortunate enough to move many on the wait list into their programs each week. We will close out the final days of camp on August 18th. During this time, the Recreation Department has also been hard at work organizing the full lineup of programs at which they will be available on the website. Registration for the fall programs launches Monday, August 7th for Philipstown residents. The Philipstown Recreation Department is introducing a few new classes, and they'll continue to offer children's fall sports, youth theater, and senior educational and fitness classes, in addition to senior trips, fall-related activities for children, and trunk or treat and teen nights for the middle schoolers. The after-school adventure program and aftercare program and preschool program will all kick off the week after camp ends. The Philipstown Recreation Department also wanted you to know that during the storm, the parks did sustain some storm damage during the flooding and were closed for a short period of time while the Highway Department could repair the main drive. Everything's been reopened thanks to Adam and his team at the Highway Department, and all of the fall sports in the fields remain set to launch the day after Labor Day. At Glassbury Park, the signage has been replaced at Quarry Pond, which had sustained some wear and tear over the years. The next meeting is August 29th at 7:30, and everyone's welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Philipstown Hub.
The Philipstown Hub, we are fortunate, and I know there's going to be an introduction later this evening, but we are fortunate to have an interim director, Chris Owens, who is with us this evening. I just want to read a little bit about Chris so that you are all familiar with his background, where the Board of Directors announced his appointment, and he's already started almost a month ago. Mr. Owens will succeed Lori Segalis, whose tenure ended earlier this summer. Under the leadership of Ms. Segalis, the Hub developed new tools designed to optimize the Hub's communications with participants, implemented new strategic partnerships with care-oriented organizations across Putnam County, and strengthened relationships between the Hub and public agencies committed to delivering quality services to the Philipstown area. We are grateful to Lori for her service and her unique skill set. And Chris, the board chair, Alexandra Dubroff, has expressed her appreciation to Lori and looks forward to building on her relationships working with Chris Owens. The board is excited to bring him on board as executive director. Chris's background is he has an experience in, I'm sorry, this is shortened, but he has a lot of experience in this area, and his skill set includes having a public affairs background with training at Princeton University and Harvard, an MPA, I believe, from Harvard University. Is that correct? Flipped. Okay, I flipped it.
We'll get more on you.
Yes, we'll get more later on, Chris, but welcome to the Philipstown Hub.
Thank you. Planning Board.
Planning Board, I attended the Planning Board meeting of July 20th. First thing on the agenda was the public hearing of Polhemus. Polhemus is building it's considered a minor project, a single-family dwelling house of about 3,200 square feet. This is the third meeting he was in front of the Planning Board. There was no public comment whatsoever. The public hearing was closed. They will prepare a resolution for next month, not next month, but the month of September. The Planning Board is off the month of August. There'll be no meeting. Next on the agenda was 1135 Route 9. Dean Garrison, that's the pizza place down there. They're creating a 385 square foot storage area in the back of the building, and there was no, everything was in order, and they had all the approvals they needed to start that project. Next on the agenda was Castle and Waffle. They've been in the planning board for many months now. They were building an addition to their house up on 168 South Mountain Pass. A lot of the area where they were going to build it was in wetlands, so the planning board and wetlands people had a lot of concern about that. So they decided to move everything out of the wetlands, so there's no construction at all in the wetlands buffer. Everything will be out of it. So they're preparing a resolution for next September's meeting to approve that application. Hudson Highlands Reserve on Route 9 and Horton Road. They've been in the planning board for 8 years now. There was a little bit of discussion, but not very much, to be quite honest with you. They were looking to get the easement holder needs a preliminary site approval to move forward. There's a company called American Land Trust that may take this conservation, may be the holder of it. They are qualified, but are not certified. I was also told at that meeting, the holder does not need to be certified to take this on. The applicant will submit the required changes for next month. The meeting was adjourned at 8:37.
Thank you, Bob. Zoning.
I think conservation's not meeting in August.
I misspoke. There is no August meeting. We are on recess for August. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Seal. Zoning.
Good evening. So the meeting for the zoning board was held on July 10th. They approved the June minutes. The new business is Mary Archer at 16 Highland Drive in Garrison. The applicant is seeking a variance for kitchen and master bedroom addition, as well as a roof height modifications. That was it. There's no old business, and they are also off for August, and their next meeting will be held the first week in September.
Everybody else gets August off.
Because it is time to vacation, John.
Highway.
Highway submitted by Item Hotel or Supervisor, or Superintendent of Highway, sorry. July, as you know, was a very difficult month for our roads here in July, as everyone's well aware of. We had a lot of water, damaged a lot of our dirt roads, to be quite honest. Wasn't a good thing. July 9th began the unprecedented amount of rainfall in the area. As fast as the crews were laying down the material, the faster the rain came and washed it back. It was all away, all taken away. As fast as it went in, it went out just as fast, they were saying. Within that whole week, in mid-month, rainstorms created a needed tremendous amount of repair for roads, which will be continued this month. We do have a report earlier on this as well.
Yeah, we'll discuss it more later.
Yeah. FEMA has declared this a disaster. We are documenting the damage and expenditures to seek disaster recovery funding. We will ask to be patient while they prioritize these roads and get the work on first. Multiple crews have been out every day working around the clock to get this work done. 2 roads were closed at some time: Old Manitou Road on Route 9 on 9D and Landgate Road and 301. Currently, only Old Manitou Road is still closed. Roads are heavily damaged and on Albany Post Road, Chapman Road, Avery Road, Indian Brook Road, and East Mountain and Phillips Brook Road waters and waterways as well. The Highway Department received a continuous amount of calls of concern during the storm. All calls and emails will be listed in the future. For the month of July, the Highway Department spent $2,600 on 2650 on vehicle maintenance, submitted by Adam Hoteling, Highway Superintendent.
Okay. Building and land acquisitions, I have nothing. Cemetery committee?
Nothing major to report. That tree got removed, and the landscaping continues to be maintained. And there is a gentleman by the name of Miles Bucket that reached out and would like to be a part of the cemetery and any fixings that need to be happening. So he's on board now as well.
Great. So it's good to get volunteers.
Yeah, and he lives right there next to the cemetery. So
That's good. All righty, thank you, Meg. Thank you,
Yeah.
cemetery committee. So we'll go on to the agenda. Kelly, we're going to switch it up a little bit.
First is a resolution approving a memorandum of agreement with Putnam County regarding the use of town's highway department garage property for an emergency communication tower. And this is a roll call vote.
So this has been before us for 2 years at this point, I think. It was back and forth. So there's going to be a communication tower going up behind our salt shed. Hopefully, we're keeping our fingers crossed that it's going to happen. It is the last piece of the puzzle for I believe, a $19 million radio improvement. Oh, you're I think that was the original numbers. But so this is the last piece to include the Philipstown area, which somebody that's been in the emergency services for 40 years, we have never had good communication in this side of the county or anywhere in the county. You know, there's so much iron in the ground. It's disrupting the low band service. So this apparently is going to be the answer to several years, decades of research and work. So we're excited about it to go in. It's going on a piece of land that was owned or had an easement on it by OSI. So it took some work for us to get that easement off so the communication tower can go on. There will be no commercial providers on this tower. It is strictly for emergency services communication. I think the school is also interested or leaning on using the system as well. Our highway department seems to have found a new system that works well, so we're not going to disrupt them. So, Ralph, do you have anything to add about the tower itself or the system?
So it's 11 tower system that will cover the whole entire county.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyway, it's 11 tower system to cover the whole county, but the problem is it's a continuous system, so you cannot operate without one tower. So this is the last piece of the puzzle for the tower construction. So we need this piece so we can then complete the system. So then Motorola Corporation is managing and building the system. So once that up, we can get up all of the tower sites, 11 tower sites, and then have seamless communication. The proposal is seamless communication from Breakneck to, the corner in Connecticut, so we can be able to speak to each other via walkie-talkie from here to there. It's much like the Metro North MTA system. So this is a huge piece, long time coming, and we thank you if you so choose to vote that way. So this is definitely what we need. So
Thank you.
thank you.
I have one question.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if one tower goes down for some reason or another,
Well, once they're up, built, there's redundancy backup systems. So if a tower goes down, it will then, a redundant system will kick in and it'll find a way to speak to each other without that.
Okay.
But you can't build it until they're all on.
gotcha.
Because they have to be able to speak to each other. And so once the communication is lost, then the redundancy kicks in and they find a way to speak to each other.
Right, good. I was
So-
just a little confused when you said they had to all be up at one time or something.
Yeah.
But, okay, thank you
build
for
the system.
The
clarification.
height of the tower has varied a few times. The final height is 110, I believe.
I believe it is. We haven't seen the drawings. The nice thing is when Motorola found this backup site, they started the engineering. So knowing that the system was going to take a long time for you guys to be able to swap over the land, so the engineering is already done. So we will get that answer. We can now proceed if you
I
guys.
did have renderings at one point, I know that, but, so it's going, if you guys can envision where the salt shed is, we have that big building, which is 40 feet tall to begin with. It's going to be it would be, I guess, the north end of the building. So it will be behind the building, the base of it, there will be a generator and a small enclosure to house the generator. So hopefully it won't be a disruption to the view shed, but it is needed, it's necessary. We need to have communication, so that's where we chose to put it. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Thank you.
On this matter,
Yep.
the resolution that I prepared in the first paragraph includes a condition that the county provide insurance, naming the town as an additional insured. There's already provision in the lease agreement for that. So what I'd suggest the board do is in paragraph 1, just strike everything from on condition that through the end of the first paragraph, and just adopt it as the town does hereby approve the proposed agreement.
Okay. And the county will take care of that, sir?
Very excited to see this happen.
Yeah.
Legislator Montgomery was very involved.
Yeah.
We're very happy to see this is progress, very important progress.
Yeah, so it took a few steps because they had the easement on this property. So in order for them to release that easement, we had to produce land somewhere else that they could, so they could keep their net conservation easement on the town. So we were able to, right, the county did as well.
Will require support from the legislature.
Right. So there was a contingent section of land that the county and the town owned, so now we have a large protected area that went to the land trust. So they will be protecting that land, which is on Sprout Brook, I believe. Or Canopus Creek, Ed? Canopus Creek. Canopus Creek. Too many creeks, but thank you. So, can I get a motion to adopt this as edited by our town attorney?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Councilwoman Cotter.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Angel. Councilwoman Farrell.
I vote aye.
And I vote aye, so it's passed unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll go back to item 1, which,
Introduction of new interim executive director at the Philipstown Hub, Chris Owens.
welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, yes, my name is Chris Owens, as you know, and I have been asked to be the interim executive director for the Philipstown Hub, succeeding 2 spectacular executive directors who've done a lot of great work. I will keep my remarks short, but I just want to emphasize a few things. Number 1, my personal background. Yes, I did go to Harvard undergrad and I did go to Princeton grad, but that's not important in this role. What is important, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that I spent 7 years as the chief of the Reentry Bureau with the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. And in that role, I became much more familiar with the challenges of substance abuse and mental health than I had been before. And then subsequent to my retirement, I became even more familiar with those challenges because in my own family, one of my sons was experiencing a lot of difficulty after the death of my wife. And so I understand the frustration that families feel when they are overwhelmed and don't know where to turn for advice, for referrals. In fact, just today in the office, we were having a long discussion with someone who was having a family issue, and it was something that had been challenging to the family for years. And it was my pleasure and honor to be able to sit with the 2 caregivers, Kyoko Gilbert and Jessica Quinones, who are wonderful people, and work with this person to try and find a way to get them the assistance that they will need. And so, as far as I'm concerned, my qualifications are that I care, and I do have a background in nonprofit administration from previous jobs, as well as with government and public affairs. I've worked in education, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in politics, but we don't need to talk about that. And I've even run for office, but we don't need to talk about that either. I do want to point out one thing. At the end of the fiscal year of 2020, which ended June 30th, 2020 for the hub, there had been 44 new cases that had come through those doors. And at the end of this past fiscal year, which ended June 30th of this year, we've counted, it's not final number, but we believe we're pretty accurate at this point. We counted 146 new cases that came in during the fiscal year, which is a 232% increase over the original. It also means that the number of average days between cases coming in dropped from 7.5 days between cases coming in to 2.25, and we expect next year to be under 2. The reality is this is happening because a lot of hard work was done by the administrators before and by the staff. But the most important thing is that awareness is increasing. People understand that there is a resource. They understand that it's a resource available for all ages. We work with young people, we work with seniors, we work with everybody who needs help. And we are not a clinical operation. We are a referral service. But believe it or not, that referral service is essential because that's the key. If people don't know who to call, don't know where to go, the rest just becomes so much more difficult. And the priority of mental health in our society is not what it should be, but we see great efforts on the part of legislators and administrators to change that and make it even better. I saw a statistic floating around recently that there were 25 overdose deaths in Putnam County last year due to opioids and other drugs. I bet that number is probably higher than we realize, and I certainly want to see it go lower. But I believe it would have been higher if there had not been organizations like the Hub around. So my job is to work with good people to lay the foundation for the next full-time permanent executive director to come in so that we can continue to expand the capacity of the organization and deliver the great service that Philipstown deserves and the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Welcome.
the Hub has become such a part of this community. It's amazing. And I have to thank Nancy, she was council person then when this started. It was her brainchild, believe it or not, and then it just blossomed into this, such a texture or part of this town. It's amazing. The fact that you care is more important to me than your education, which is also impressive. But you have some big shoes to fill, following the two women that went ahead of you. But I'm confident just hearing your voice and listening to you that we're going to do just well. And any chance that you'll be our permanent director?
One of the great, well, first,
I mean, I'm just asking,
let me just be absolutely clear.
just to be blunt.
I retired from 9-to-5 work in 2021, and one of the great things about my role is that I can do this with a clear head, focus on the needs of the organization, and not be distracted by worrying about whether I'm going to end up with a job at the end.
Well, you said
So,
there's 2.5 days in between, so you'll be okay. All right,
Thank you very much.
Welcome. If there's anything you need from me, I think you have my contacts. I'm sure you do.
I'm
You can
sure
reach
we
out.
will be talking to everyone.
Sounds good.
So,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you very
Great
much.
to meet you. Okay. Cal?
Climate Smart Coordinator Martha Upton. Update on local solar initiatives and the possibility of free technical assistance as we move forward.
Thank you. Hello, thank you all for having me back again to talk more about solar. It seems to be rolling along well. What I'm going to share with you today has 3 parts. First, I'll summarize the EPA report on the Lane Gate landfill regarding potential solar installation there. And I'll also mention a few additional municipal properties that may be appropriate for solar development. Then I'll describe possible next steps and a potential partnership with Jewel Community Power, which has started supporting communities like ours in solar development. Finally, I want to tell you about a new Climate Smart committee that is focusing on local solar policy and what we might be able to do to support the town board and the town in general. I'm going to encourage Councilman Angel to chime in at any point because he has significant experience in this area, much more than I do. So, as you know, this June the EPA sent us their report on the viability of Lane Gate as a solar site. And during their visit, the team screened for available flat open land, free from sunlight obstruction, and suitable to support solar panels. They found that approximately 3.5 acres in 3 separate parcels would work for solar installation. They proposed, the proposed installation would produce 875 kilowatts of clean electricity every year, which would reduce our carbon emissions over 800 metric tons of CO2 every year.
Each 3.5 acre section would produce that? Or
There's one 3.5 acre, it's 3.5 acres altogether.
total, gotcha. I
Yeah.
thought there was 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I
gotcha.
wish there were. No, there's only 3.5 acres altogether.
Gotcha.
In terms of electric line connection, there is a transmission line around 6 miles from the landfill, but there are also transmission lines much closer, between 350 and 800 feet from the landfill. What we have to figure out, and what the EPA is encouraging us to do, is to work with Central Hudson to determine whether there is a 3-phase transmission line, which is what we need. And in general, the distance from the proposed solar system to the point of connection should be within half a mile. So we have to figure out whether we can make that happen.
You got to plug it in.
Yeah. The type of installation that the EPA recommends for our landfill is similar to the one in Beacon. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but I went to visit it. It's really interesting. The installer did not dig the solar panels into the ground.
Right.
They anchor the panels in these sort of concrete tubs or blocks, and those sit on top of the landfill so they don't disrupt the cap in any way.
That's always been an issue, right?
Yes. So I guess that's an advancement in the technology that would, that makes our landfill more viable for this now. Overall, the EPA report concluded that Lane Gate would be a good site for solar installation as long as we can figure out the electric connectivity.
Great.
Any thoughts or questions about that part?
So what would our next step be if we were
Okay.
to utilize them?
So, let me keep going a little bit, because the next step for that is sort of tied in with a larger picture that we're trying to develop. So, 3.5 acres is a fairly small parcel for the town to go into for solar development. So it may make sense for us to try to bundle Lane Gate with other potential sites in the town that the municipality owns. In June, I told you about a partnership that the task force has formed with Sustainable Putnam to map potential solar sites in Philipstown. Councilman Angel and I sent a list of town-owned properties to our partner for him to put through his mapping system. He analyzed them, and he sent us back a list of potential sites. We looked through the list and found that most of them would not be appropriate because they had a lot of woods on them, a lot of forest. But we did find a few places that we thought could be viable, and we actually drove over and looked at them. And we still think that they have potential. The 3 properties are, there's a big one, approximately 10 acres, located near the Desmond Fish Library off of 9D. Jason, do you know how to describe that location
I
better?
mean, you all have been there because the well's been dug there and the community farm is there. There's
Yeah.
a New Leaf Restoration Farm across from Desmond Fish.
So that is our biggest potential property that the town owns, and it's, it's kind of ideal in some ways because it is hemmed in by trees. It's not going to bother anyone in terms of the view shed.
Well, there's that guy, there's a residence right there on the corner. Is that the land that you're talking about?
Okay,
Yeah.
so there is
So there is a resident.
There is a resident
And
there.
he's, yes.
okay.
He's
All right.
prepared for what is going to be developing there, whatever it may be.
All right. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is in Philipstown Park, the parking area could have a solar canopy over it.
I've seen that a lot of high schools. do.
Yeah. And there are probably other places in town that we haven't thought of yet, but they could have solar canopies. Another place, and this is just a thought, Jason and I drove over to look at the highway department roof, which we know would be, we're considering for development. But there's a place behind the highway department building also. There's just a lot of land back there that seems to be sort of multi-use land, and we just don't know whether part of that might be available as well. So anyway, if we could bundle a couple of these other properties in with the landfill and the highway garage roof, it would give us a more substantial project and greater potential benefits.
What would the minimum acreage that you'd look for to make it?
I don't really think there's a minimum, but
But 3.5 doesn't sound like it's enough.
3.5 could be enough if we can't do any better than that. We
Could be a
just
good
felt
start.
it could be a good start.
Right.
We just thought, why not see if we can build it up a little?
I guess one point would just be that I know that as you bundle bundle more properties and you go out to bid with them, then you get a much
Gotcha.
better bid in terms
Gotcha.
of developing.
I'm sorry, I just have a question, it might be a silly question. Who's funding all of this?
You mean who funds the
Well,
building?
who would be funding putting the solar up right now?
Okay,
That's
so,
the question.
yeah.
Could be a silly one, but I'm just
No,
curious.
it's not silly at all. So Jason, do you want to explain how that sort of works?
Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, it's okay. So I think, Megan, it's a good question. I think there's a couple different ways that solar developers do it. They either, a solar developer comes in and they finance it and they lease it from the municipality or any property owner. They pay a lease payment to the property owner, they finance it themselves, and they're doing that because they're making profit off of it, off of selling the electricity. The second, and I think it gets into the last part, Martha, of how Juul could be, because, John, when you asked about the next step really is to simplify it, at some point we'd have to decide what properties we want to explore more, and then go out and get some bids from developers on developing those properties, put an RFP together for that. It's a lot of work, and so Martha connected with Juul, and I won't steal your thunder here if you're going to talk about it.
Go
but
right ahead.
they now have an arm where they're doing for free, no cost service, some initial analysis of properties, but then mostly they could help for free develop that RFP process. But the thing we were interested in is that the conventional model is a solar developer comes in, finances it, leases, and pays a lease payment to the town, but the Inflation Reduction Act that was just passed has made it easier for municipalities and nonprofits to own systems and just contract with another group to do the operations and maintenance. And that's where it can be fairly lucrative to the town because you own the system, the electricity. And so a group like Juul could help us kind of understand a little bit better what the options could be from the different lease versus ownership perspectives and what the benefits could be.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I would suggest we put together a workshop when you guys are prepared, but we could select property, work on selecting property, and then go with a plan as to where we would head with it. So,
That makes sense.
sound good?
That sounds great.
Yeah. So September, we'll plan something for September.
We did get an estimate for the highway garage.
Yeah,
You
that's
got one
all.
already? Yeah.
Yeah,
Just for
well,
the-
just when we were going through the process, I do have, and I'm sure that would change.
Is the roof already like prepared for that?
The roof designed to hold solar panels, yes. Yeah.
Even the roofing material is designed.
So just to build a little bit more about what Jason was saying about Juul, they offer two different levels of support. The first level is completely free.
We like that.
Yeah, we love that one. And basically, they do an assessment of the parcels you're considering. They also bring in, and I'm not exactly sure yet what this means, an assessment of external opportunities that could benefit our residents. Now, does that mean other towns they're working with, other projects? I don't know, but I'm interested in knowing more about that. They also will do an assessment of the available incentives and grants and help us understand exactly how the investment tax credit could help us. They will consult with us on ownership and financing. They will offer a community information session, and they will write us up a written report, all for free. So I kind of think, why not do that? So the next step with that would be, which we can do at our next meeting, for the board to pass a resolution saying that we're going to work with them on this first phase of it. The next phase, we still would not pay anything, but they would end up getting paid by the developer. That phase is actually developing the RFP, sending out the RFP, helping us choose which proposals we think are best, et cetera, et cetera. And they would then get paid, when we finally chose someone, they would get paid by that developer.
Gotcha.
So I don't think we even have to think about that right now. We're just still exploring our options.
It sounds like, the last time Jules was here and presented, they don't have enough green power being developed, so they're looking for places to develop. That's basically it. The demand has exceeded the supply. That's right. So they're looking to.
That's really
provide
interesting,
facility.
yeah.
At some point, you can't buy renewable energy credits anymore. You have to start building more renewable, and that's
Right.
the point we're at. Yeah.
Right.
And the community will have access to these credits.
Yeah, especially,
Well, through
well,
CCA, we all have.
we would totally have access to this power, and I think there are a variety of ways of providing access to the public and to the municipality itself. Beacon uses its landfill to power its whole municipal structure. You know, so finally, I want the task force to know that the board to know that the task force has formed this new climate smart committee focused on developing a more comprehensive local solar policy.
Okay.
Councilman Angel has been helping us refine our goals on that. Jason, would you just say a few words about how the committee could be helpful to the town and to the board as we go forward?
I think we just kind of started to have this conversation because the comprehensive plan updated listed kind of a comprehensive solar policy as a top priority. And I think Philipstown, if you look at the code, has bits and pieces of it, but the Climate Smart Task Force wanted to take a look at what model communities are doing. I mean, mostly what's happening is solar developers are coming into communities and they're looking for properties that are closest to the electric lines, and then they're just trying to get them, even if it means clear cutting forests, even if it means building near wetlands. And so a good local policy would say, yes, we may want solar, but we don't want it on certain properties. And so I think we just want to learn more about what good local communities are doing.
Sounds like
Yeah, so we would be spending a lot of time researching what other towns are doing and what they've come up with, the language they've developed, et cetera. I just wanted to end by saying that in terms of our climate smart status as a bronze certified community, the only way for us to get from bronze to silver is to demonstrate that we have measurably and significantly reduced the town's emissions. We have not done that yet.
Okay.
But this, developing municipal solar, along with town policies that support and encourage local solar, that would be a big step towards our goal of becoming silver.
Sounds like a plan.
All right,
so
thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank you. Nancy. Okay, Kel?
Next is a resolution introducing a local law to adopt a community preservation plan, initiating SEQRA review, making referrals, and setting a public hearing. This is a roll call vote.
Okay, so we've had several meetings on this. We had a full workshop on it last Wednesday. Last Wednesday, we discussed it. Ed, you're here from the Hudson Land Trust, who has proposed this to us. There was a couple different options for us to take. Was just the plan, which is what we're identifying here and what we're adopting. Step 2 was 2 and 3 were to develop a fund, and the fund would be financed through a sales tax, basically. I hate calling it a tax, but it's a fee that would go on on the buyer that would be paid towards this fund. So we did a study on the feasibility of this and the thought of it being added to the sales tax or sales of a home in the town of Philipstown was not favorable. It was done, unfortunately, at a bad time. It was done during COVID. People were paying $5 for a gallon of gasoline, and the thought of adding another fee to something did not settle well. So we still think the plan is important, to have this plan in place. It enables us to identify properties which have been identified in the plan, and in the future possibly develop the fund as well as the sales transfer fee. So again, it wouldn't go on the seller, it would go on the buyer. So if you came in here to buy a parcel, a home, we would set a threshold, so it would be 400,000 or 500, and then there's variable rates. It could be 0.75, 1.5, 2.5. There's all kinds of variables for that, but we decided not to go with that. We met last Wednesday and we decided to strictly adopt the plan itself. So this is also identified in the comprehensive plan to adopt the conservation preservation plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board. Does anybody have anything to say?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
And I'm sure we went over this in the workshop. If you just want to explain, we are adopting this plan, but if we were to ever adopt the fund, if you want to explain what that fund would be used for.
The fund would be, well, the fund would be governed by a group of community members, which would have to be appointed by the town board. They would select parcels that are in the plan that would be identified for preservation. Around the water sources around Foundry Dam would be obviously one of them. There's several identified properties. So that fund would be there to purchase these pieces of land that are unique and important to the preservation of the community.
We had the workshop, but it wasn't a lot of people here to discuss.
What's that?
I said during the workshop, it was great. We all know that, but I'm saying,
Gotcha.
you know, the community
And
wasn't here, so
am I
it's a
missing
good
anything on
explanation.
that? Or am I-
No, I mean, you summarized it really well.
so, all right.
Just one.
I'm sorry, Nick? Right, it's identified in here as well, but this goes a little further, identifying areas of special concern for the community. Yeah.
Is there a possibility, if it's not going to be financed through some kind of tax on the sale of homes, for it to be financed through donors that are currently donating for the preservation of land within the community?
We discussed this the other night, but the fact that we don't have a governing board, I'm not sure if we could even receive grant money or donations, because
Right, well, in order to use grant funding, to supplement
Right.
whatever the town might have from this fund, you would need to have that board in place to sort of.
so that may be our next step, to develop that board and appoint it, so it could be.
I apologize, I missed the workshop.
Yeah, we made you.
That's what always happens if you ever miss a meeting. You end up with a new chairmanship of something. John has a very good way of making sure you don't want to miss any meetings. Ted, I had one question. So the community preservation plan kind of identifies the projects that could be funded through that fund.
Correct. And in fact, oh, sure, yeah.
And as just the one question was, if those projects change, or if a project comes up that becomes a priority, how does that preservation plan get amended, or what's that?
There isn't an amendment process, but if you amend what you've passed by local law, you have to go through that process again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you have the plan has the suggestions for parcels that are priorities for the municipality, and the idea is that if established, the use of those funds would adhere to what's in the plan. The two things are directly connected.
And there was one question that we brought up the other night that we didn't get an answer to, was if we adopted the fund, would it apply to the villages, or would they be exempt from it? Did we ever get an answer on that? Not that it matters at this point, because we're not doing
Yeah,
the fund.
I don't have an answer to that. My suspicion is that it will apply to the villages.
Okay.
But
Steve,
I'll find out.
Warwick, it does, yeah.
It does.
The
Yeah.
town of Warwick's adopted CPC, and transfer tax applies in the villages, and that's because the property that's being purchased is, for the benefit of the people of the villages.
Right, and several of these parcels would be really beneficial to the village of Cold Spring and the village, and also
Right,
the water
right.
supply, so
Right,
it
yeah.
would make.
Yeah, and if you're creating a transfer tax or fee,
Right.
it stands to reason that if you do that at the town level, it's going to apply to your villages. Yeah.
Sorry, just one more question, statement, just from the workshop, so everybody's aware. This would go then to a ballot, correct? You
Yes.
mentioned something
So
during
in
the
order
workshop.
in order to establish the fund, you have to create
Right.
the tax,
The-
the fee.
The fee.
And that's what requires a
Okay.
referendum.
This,
Yeah.
this does not require a public referendum.
Adopting the plan does not, no.
The other two steps would require. a
Correct.
referendum.
And you'll have the plan in place if you were ever to
Right.
take that next step.
Okay. All right, so we will we'll vote on this, but we've noticed that there is a typo on the second page of it, section 4, it says the town of Fishkill, which is obviously not us. I don't think they'd be too happy if we put this on the town of Fishkill. So we're gonna change that to the town of Philipstown. So can I get a motion to adopt it amended to saying the town of Philipstown?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Councilwoman Cotter,
Aye, yes.
Councilman Flaherty,
Aye.
Councilman Angel,
Aye.
Councilwoman Farrell.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you very much. Done.
Next is is a resolution approving memorandum of understanding with Metro North Commuter Railroad Company regarding crossing improvements at Manitou Station Road, and this is a roll call vote.
So I was contacted several months ago. I met with representatives from the engineering firm that's doing the work, as well as Metro North. They're planning on doing some increased safety measures at the Manitou crossing. The priority at this point is a walking path across the tracks. Currently, there's gates for the roadway, but they want to add one for the pedestrian traffic. So there will be a pedestrian walk, which will be ADA compliant, just south of the roadway which crosses. So I did contact some of the residents on Manitou Station Road. No, it's that Manitou Station? It is, yes, Manitou Station Road. They are, they have a leader that they've selected who is going to be part of the planning. There is going to be noise by these devices saying that a train is coming. So anytime that there's an increase in noise, even though you're by the train track, I wanted the residents to be aware of what was going on. And there will be some gates added and some design changes, which I thought was important that the residents stayed involved. So there has been that connection made. So I'm confident. I think it's a $750,000 improvement to that crossing, which seems like a lot. Totally, yes, completely. It's part of a nationwide safety program, federal safety program, correct? I'm sorry. Right. Oh, that's right. Right, that was part. It's federal railroad, correct. Yes, thank you. All right, so with that said, can I get a motion to approve this agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Councilwoman Cotter.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Angel.
Aye.
Councilwoman Farrell.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you. A lot of roll calls tonight. Tara leaves for one meeting and we get all these roll calls.
She knew what she was doing.
Next is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Cold Spring for fuel provisions for village vehicles and equipment.
Okay, so Cold Springs fueling system, which is down at their village garage, is no longer acceptable, so they're going to discontinue using it, and they're looking for a place to buy fuel. It's not buying, they're gonna get it at our cost, whatever our cost is, we're just gonna forward it. So it will be with the police cars, the chief's vehicles, the fire department, and their highway equipment, and the water department. So it's, we do this with Putnam County, we did it with Continental Village Fire Department for a period of time. So the system is all computerized, they got a brand new system with the tanks. So it's all identified, there'll be a chip for each vehicle, and they'll be able to keep track of it. And then we just bill the Village of Cold Spring. So this came from a request from the village board, so I'm happy to entertain it. The highway crew is okay with it, they read through it. I spoke to Adam, he's fine with it. So if I can get a motion to accept the intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Cold Spring for fuel.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is a resolution authorizing the Philipstown Justice Court to apply for a JCAP grant in the 2023-24 grant cycle for up to $30,000.
So our court clerk, Cindy Peragio, has been very successful in the past at getting these, so I certainly endorse giving her the ability to seek this JCAP grant for the 23-24 cycle. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is a resolution authorizing the Highway Department purchase of an equipment trailer from the Ness Automotive in the amount of $8,250, which will be taken from the budgeted equipment line.
Yeah, Adam called me in a panic. I need another trailer. I said, well, we'll take it out of your budget. And so that's what they did. They, I think this is purchased already. No, they have not. So this will come out of their new equipment line, so it's all part of the budget. So can I get a motion to accept the purchase of an $8,250 trailer, equipment trailer?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Next is a resolution approving the new quote for the cleaning service from WA Cleaning Solutions LLC in the amount of $920 per month, with a periodic cleaning for the court at $50 per cleaning, and authorizing the supervisor to sign any associated documents.
So, I guess the last cleaning service has not lived up to their part of the agreement. Bob, would you like to?
Yeah, we did have a new cleaning person that started in January. We had some issues with them. It was a hit and miss type of thing. Some days they were better than others and so forth like that. We had some complaints from them and so forth like that. So we went out and found 3 new bids, and this was the lowest bidder. And I have a very confident in this company, and this is a very good price. It's a little bit higher than we were paying, but much less than what we were paying previously years before this. So that's all. I think I'll have to notify the current cleaner that their contract will be terminated.
Give them the bad news.
Yeah. So and then
Part of
I'll
the
let them know
problem
that.
is with the court, they clean the court and they clean the court offices. The people have to be fingerprinted and there has to be a background check. So it wasn't the same person coming to clean each time. So it meant we needed to run them through the ringer. So it became not a productive
a little
agreement.
bit administrative overhead a little bit.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But
Putting it mildly, so, yes. So can I get a motion to accept the bid from WA Cleaning Solutions in the amount of $920 per month and $50 per cleaning?
so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Monthly workshops. That's it, right? That's all we got?
That's it.
So, Martha, when would be a good time in September to do a climate smart workshop? We'll do it any Wednesday night. Does anybody have a calendar we can pick some?
I'm pretty free, so
Okay.
let me know what works for the rest of you, and I'll be there.
We have the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th.
The 6th would be the night before our
Before
town
our
board
town board.
meeting.
When school starts.
School starts on the 6th, so that would not be it.
So let's go for the 13th, September 13th. We can always change.
Perfect.
Good?
And that'll be at 7 o'clock,
7 o'clock, John, 7:30.
7:30.
7:30?
Anything else we need to work on? Yes, sir.
Forgive me, I was remiss. I did not introduce a member of our board who's here this evening, Heidi Stevens, who's the secretary of the board, and she has an announcement to make.
She requires no announcement. Heidi? Not yet, but you can speak on it. That's all right.
I'm not so great at this stuff, but thank you everybody for supporting the hub, for the Philipstown Town Board for supporting the hub. Obviously, we need to raise additional funds, not just the money that the towns and the villages provide to us. So we do have a fundraiser coming up on Saturday, September 2nd. It's the day of the Village of Cold Spring Community Day. We'll have a 5K and family fun run. It starts at 9:30 on Saturday, September 2nd. Go to the hub's website to sign up. We're doing it via run sign up, and tell your friends to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Code Enforcement Monthly Report. You want to
Yes.
give that a shot?
So fees collected, $44,408.50. Total number of permits issued, 47. Additional alterations and repairs, 3. All other permits, pools, sheds, decks, and plumbing, HVAC, 44. Number of COs, 50. Number of stop orders, work orders issued, 2. And inspection of public assembly, 6.
Thank you. Thank you to Greg Warner, always bringing in the dough. I have a few things to address before we break it up. But first of all, in response to the storm of July 9th, I believe, July 8th, July 9th, I was fortunately out of town, which was wonderful, but ended up coming back to meet our county executive and some other dignitaries here at the main problem in the village of Cold Spring. First, I wanted to thank our emergency services for the job that they did. They were out nonstop, how many hours? An endless amount of time. pumping basements around the clock. So it was Sunday night, Monday, then we got hit again on Tuesday. So they were really beat up badly. So my appreciation to the emergency services. I also like to say Sunday night going into Monday, we had 12 people stranded at the Cold Spring train station because the trains had stopped. They had come down from the mountain, got to the Cold Spring train station, and were stranded. They walked up to the Cold Spring firehouse. The firehouse let them in, but they said, look, we need to open the shelter. So I contacted Cecily Hall, who immediately, I'm on my way, just get me there. So a highway truck picked her up, brought her down there.
I picked her up.
Oh, Bobby picked her up, sorry. Sorry, I'm getting to you, Bob. And then Amber, our former director, who was always there to run, we don't want to call it a shelter, a comfort center, comfort station, she stepped up and also assisted with Cecily. I was able to get in touch with Deputy Supervisor Flaherty. He went down as well, so I was comfortable that we were covered. But that's the way this town works. I mean, it's like we need something, it comes together, we put something together. Bobby ended up driving these 12 people in the recreation bus to the Croton train station so they could get back to New York City. So my thanks to all of you for everything you did. Also, along the same lines, we had a lot of needs during the storm. Legislator Montgomery stepped up, was in my office on Monday morning when I got here, assisted me. Our highway crew has been amazing, but we needed a pump. It was Tuesday or Wednesday. We had 2 fire trucks go down in pumping the Cedar Street culvert over here. So I sent out an email to everybody I could think of, and Putnam County came through. Bob Lipton, by mid-afternoon, John, I found a pump. It's in Montgomery, New York, bigger than what we even needed. I was able to get Adam to drive over and grab it. So within hours, we were able to get this enormous pump. So hopefully, and now since we've put that pump at the highway facility in Cold Spring, knock wood, we haven't had a flood. So I think it's doing its job regardless. But my thanks to County Executive as well as the Bureau of Emergency Services for producing. It came from the state of New York. We don't know if we're ever giving it back. We have it for 90 days. It can be extended, but I said, it may end up missing, but it's okay. But my appreciation to all of them. So it was great the way the community came together. We have in the past, Ralph and I, along with Nancy and Richard, we developed a local emergency coordination center. We're going to resurrect that. It is very important that we have a unified command center here and a unified line of communication with Putnam County. So I did speak with you and Amber. Amber is willing and able to staff that. So I'm hoping that we can get something together. We did have one meeting, you and I and Amber. So I'm hoping to get that back together and get it back running. Because it could play a vital role in our response. We are geographically separated from the emergency services in Carmel. During Hurricane Irene, we were physically and communication-wise completely isolated from Putnam County. We survived because that facility was working. So we will no longer use the North Hollands Firehouse. I'm hoping to use the highway garage, which is now got a conference room, it's got communications, it's got a generator. So. And it's also where our resources are. Our highway equipment is there. So we're going to all get roles to serve as this. And if you don't come to a meeting, you will be in charge of it, without a doubt. So look forward to doing that. We'll be looking for community volunteers to staff. We don't call it a shelter. We call it a comfort station. The Red Cross had 2 trailers there at the rec center for years. With hundreds of beds, food, all kinds of supplies, and then all of a sudden one day they were gone. They took them out. I'm like, where did they? Nobody can answer, what happened to them. But we still have a building that's got the county provided us with a generator, so the building has power regardless of what's going on, as long as the generator starts. But it's not air conditioned. There's no beds, but it's a place to get warm. It's a place to get dry. They can always throw together a pot of coffee, some pasta and meatballs if we had to, and you can charge your cell phone, which seems to be the most important thing for people at most times. So, but we will resurrect that local emergency coordination center, which is really simple but functions. It functions really well. So that's it for me.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Tassel
Yep.
and Deputy Supervisor Flaherty for your leadership, and Legislator Montgomery, and the county executive, and Ralph, especially during that time. I was out of town as well, but I heard from many residents, and I did meet with residents when I came back. It was, it was a mess, but I think the community did pull together to help one another. I know Bob delivered sandbags as well to some people in the community, which was vital, and that people started to communicate throughout this disaster for our area. It really was declared a disaster by President Biden, so we appreciate everyone's help in getting that support.
And Bob, you brought up the dirt roads before. As we discussed Wednesday in a workshop, the time has come, in my eyes, to start paving. There are critical areas of the town that are dirt roads that are chronically being washed out. The culverts in the village of Nelsonville are full of Lane Gate Road right now that we had to remove. So I had Maureen put together some numbers. As from July 8th to August 2nd, $194,000 in repairs of the dirt roads in the town of Philipstown. So it's not only a fiscal disaster for the town, but it is an environmental disaster at this point, in my eyes. I might be wrong, but I've been up here for, this is my 14th year on the board. We've been discussing this year after year. This is the third highway superintendent that I've worked with. Between those three gentlemen, there's probably 100 years of road grading between Roger, Carl, and Adam. To say that it's the grade on the road or it's the material that we're using on the road, I just think it's the environment. We're in a different environment. The climate is changing. We get a 100-year storm, it seems like every 6 months at this point. They put the roads together on Sunday night, as in the highway department report. They put the roads together Sunday night into Monday, and Tuesday they were gone again. So I just think it's time. I spoke with Adam. He's put together a list of roads. Not the entire road, but there are areas, there's steep slopes that are chronically washing out. Storm after storm after storm, it's gone. So I am going to seek FEMA funds. I'm going to meet with Seamus from Meridian to assist us with getting some FEMA funds for hopefully some drainage and some hard surfaces on some of the more difficult areas. We have 14% grades, 20% grades that no matter what we do, we can't keep the dirt on them. So it's time. We met with, I won't give any names, we met with one resident who has 2 retention ponds on their property. They had cleaned out these retention ponds prior to this storm, and they had a pile, I guarantee you, was 30 to 40 yards of item 4 stacked up. And I was like, well, we'll take that dirt back. They were like, no. We paid our guys to take that. We're going to use that to grade our driveway. So this is the amount of material that's going off of our roads into private properties, into culverts, into streams, into wetlands. I think it's time we need to address this aggressively. So again, Adam has put together a list. We'll be meeting with him in our budget season comes up in September, and our plan is to start paving. So.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, though, that we're not going around and pave every single dirt road in our community. We're looking at troubled spots, okay? We're not going to just say arbitrarily pave this entire road. If it's a steep slope and we're there every other week washing it away, it needs to be paved. That's all.
Anyone else?
I mean, I would just say I'm sure this is going to be a passionate conversation because we've all been a part of those meetings in the past, and it brings out a lot of Philipstown that have different, feelings about it. I mean, I personally come from a passionate dirt road family for a long time. As you all know, we live right off of South Mountain Pass. My house is, if you go too fast around the corner, you probably would be in our living room. I mean, that's how close to the road we are. But, and I think, you know, for me personally, dirt roads are about a feel for this community. You know, but at the same time, while I've been always, you know, really, I love dirt roads. While that is true, over the past couple years on my road, I've seen it wash out often. And I'm also someone who cares about the environment, like all of us. And I've seen, you know, culverts filling up and item 4 going in the creek. So I just, you know, in this conversation we have in the future, I hope we can just kind of, you know, while some people love dirt roads, other people may be more prone to paving. I just think taking a hard look at it and saying, like, you know, how much is coming off into creeks and streams. You know, if, you know, I look at my other side of South Mountain Pass after that flooding, the pavement crumbled. And so I'm not a pavement expert. I don't know what the costs are to repair paved roads that fail. But I definitely, as someone who loves dirt roads, understand looking at some parts that keep.
There was some damage on the other side, but I can tell you from somebody that's been here, there would have been no road there at all. It would have been completely gone. So there's no doubt about it. And look, no matter, I mean, 9D had damage. You can see the paved roads on the other side of the river were destroyed. Bridges were taken down. That storm was beyond the norm. The ones that are every thunderstorm that are destroyed, that's what we really need to address. There's going to be issues no matter what. I mean, I came home on it Monday and I drove around and I said, I got to go up East Mountain South and Esselborn, which were fine. And it's because there was pavement. There's no doubt in my mind that it was the pavement, because I can remember as, you know, 17, 18-year-old fireman going up there because the road was completely gone because there was no pavement and the bridge failed. So there is a need to address the steeper areas. We've tried grading, we've tried different drainage, we've tried different road material. It's just a tough sell. So Terry, I know you would like to make some comment. Yes, go ahead. Have at it. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've had a chance to come into this room. Between COVID and the lack of issues regarding the roads, I don't think we've had occasion to be in front of you for a while. But we certainly do thank you for the opportunity to come before you. And I want to thank you personally also, Supervisor Van Tassel, for just, you know, giving us a heads up that you were going to be discussing
Yeah,
this
I'm not
today.
doing anything behind anybody's back.
No, and we know that. We appreciate that.
Right.
And that's been the relationship that we've had right along in terms of working along with this administration, and we look forward to that type of congeniality. That all being said, all the good stuff there, you know, we were hoping to meet sometime in early June, actually. But, and we actually got to the point where we almost had a good meeting set up involving Adam and some of the folks from the board and some of the folks from the Old Road Society. But then on our end, things got complicated, and we apologize for that. Because that would have been in advance of all this stuff, and it wouldn't have looked like this is in reaction to. But we were prepared to come and sit down and talk and just relax a little bit over some thoughts as to how we might proceed. Right now, we're more or less in the mode of trying to say that you know, extreme events, and I think you've said this, really should not undermine years of policy and careful deliberations, which is true. I mean, it's very easy to react. It's natural to react, but you know, the years of effort have gone into development of a comprehensive town plan, and part of that comprehensive plan is maintaining the ambiance, the character, the sense and feel of the community, you know, as Adam mentioned, the feel of the roads, if you will. That is part of Philipstown. And you know, what the impact of the type of paving we're talking about may be on that, we don't know until we actually, you know, hear and see, you know, what those plans might ultimately look like. You know, as you pointed out, you know, Supervisor, the paved roads in various areas around the region went through a lot, as well as the dirt roads. And we know that there were real problems on some of the dirt roads, but similarly there were real problems on many of the paved roads here and there throughout the region. And so, you know, is paving always the answer? You know, all that we're hoping for is to be part of what would be a reasoned discussion a process of at least talking with the board, members of the board perhaps, not doesn't have to necessarily be the whole board, and particularly with Adam, so that we can understand, where he's looking to go with some of this, and can have some opportunity for dialogue before final decisions are made. Because
That's why I notified you to be here.
thank you, because I remember in the old days, the old days, and as I look at it, going back maybe 10, 15 years ago, in those days, basically the list would come out, and then it would be a matter of reacting to the list. Maybe we can get ahead of the process and sort of collegially work toward, seeing what makes sense in terms of a list.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate
We
your...
look forward to having sitting down with you to have that conversation.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Council.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, I'd just like to bring up one other thing. We started e-waste again last year in January. We did a 6-month program, pilot program, which we did, and we kept it going. We started charging people for the last month here, and since we started charging people, our e-waste collection went down to hardly anything, which is a good thing. But right now, I found another opportunity through the county, a company called E-Waste Plus, that's going to be collecting our e-waste for free. So we're going to go back to not charging anybody. I went on the webpage the other day, and now we're a certified EEC e-waste collection facility here in Philipstown, up our recycling center. So, and
Strictly for Philipstown residents. We're not
right,
taking anybody
just
else's.
exactly, Philipstown residents. So they came the other day, they picked up what we had for free, and they left these bins here, which is a lot easier to fill a bin as of just throwing the stuff into a pile. So we have 6 bins up there that are ready to go. So starting this Saturday, you can bring your e-waste up to the land recycling center for free.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Sure. Sure.
The only other, Judy and Bob know this, they're both on the Food Scrap Recycling Committee, but the food scrap program that Philipstown started was first in the county. It's helped divert thousands and thousands of pounds of food scraps out of landfills where they'd create greenhouse gas emissions into compost. That's helping to grow things. But the Food Scrap Recycling Committee has been discussing changing our food scrap carrier, mostly because CRP, who is the company that operates right in Cortland and serves Beacon, they're so close by that the emissions involved in coming and picking up food scraps are a lot less. So the Food Scraps Recycling Committee was leaning towards CRP. I just wanted to say, John and I talked about it. We weren't able to get the CRP contract on the agenda to look at tonight, but as our counsel, Steve Gaba, reminded us, our food scrap carrier contract required a 30-day termination notice. And so we just wanted to potentially introduce a resolution to terminate the contract with Curbside to meet that 30 days tonight, but then have the chance at the next board meeting to review the new food scrap carrier contract right when that 30-day window would be over, so we don't fall behind too much. And I didn't know if you had if that's allowable to kind of do that as a...
Well, it is, but you might wind up with a window where you don't have a food scrap carrier.
We're in contact with CRP, and they are set to go. Yeah, so I don't know if...
Should we want to meet next week, next Wednesday, and do it? Are you guys available next Wednesday? We could do it officially. Could you have it?
Traveling.
What do you all think? I mean, CRP, Bob, we've been in multiple conversations with CRP. They're ready to go because they're picking up from Beacon every week.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like...
the fees are the same, right? The fees are almost identical, right, that we're paying today, Curbside.
They're exactly the same exact fee as Curbside. It's just...
We have to terminate the other company 30 days in advance.
Exactly.
So we need a motion to terminate.
That's right. So we would
Steve, could we do that motion
that
tonight?
You can do it orally, sure.
Okay.
So can I get a motion? Is there too late? We can go ahead.
Sure. So introduce a motion to terminate Curbside Compost contract as the food scraps recycling carrier for the town of Philipstown, as our contract requires that we give them a 30-day termination notice.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
And the reason we're doing this isn't that curbside wasn't doing a good job. It was just like Jason said, a matter of, they had to go all the way, they came all the way from Connecticut.
Yeah.
So we thought this was, like I said, greenhouse gases and so forth, they're going to Beacon anyway, they come right through Philipstown, so they can pick us up on the way up or way back from Beacon. So it just, that was the only reason why we changed it.
And the cost is the same.
Cost is identical.
Jason, I love how you had it right on hand.
What's
I
that?
love how you had it right on hand. You're like, resolution, it's happening
The
now,
supervisor
right
and I
now.
talked about it beforehand, I guess. It wasn't
Well
all
played,
deliberate.
Jason, well played.
And there's an additional day, isn't there an additional?
Well, not yet.
Not yet?
Oh.
We'll
Okay.
discuss that another time, but also too, we did, last year we gave the Compels Give Back Day, we did get the material from CRP as well.
It's making those flowers grow amazing. We're not gonna be able to see the buildings.
I know, I think we gotta talk about that next year.
John, wait, there was one question, you had said to Karen Ertl, the chairperson of the Food Stamps Recycling, you thought if there was a second day, Ryan needed to be up there a second
Yes.
day,
I have not been in touch with them yet.
but your support.
But I'm not comfortable with that being a self-serve facility,
Yeah.
because I just think there's too many variables there and too many places where people could get hurt or dump stuff there that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
If that gate's open, so
Yeah, I-
we need to get in touch with.
You know, a couple weeks ago, you know, I go up there every Saturday, but anyway, a few weeks ago, I go up there and there's a couch sitting there, there's a bunch of junk sitting there, and I saw Ryan, and Ryan goes, well, it is, but Ryan says, that wasn't there last week when I locked the gate. So it happened during the week somehow, you know, okay, it's open during the week because our highways guys are in and out of it all the time, so someone must have snuck in there and dumped this stuff off.
Okay, call on the audience. Anything from the audience? Yes. Dan, we didn't have you on the agenda tonight. I apologize. Could you please give us your report?
Sure, it's not a report, it's just because you covered everything, and I just want to say thank you, and there's a lot of thanks to go around, especially for the radio tower, and we'd be remiss if we didn't thank OSI and Peter Karras, and thank you so much to Town Attorney Gaba for getting us to this last home stretch, and especially to Tom Lannon, who has really done great work with this. So we can't wait to get this resolved, and for communication, which is key to operate and to keep people safe and to run government. Communication is really important with us, with each other, with our constituents and everybody. So looking forward to that. And speaking of communication, I was at a town hall with the county executive yesterday at the town of Putnam Valley. And one thing that was clear regarding the storm response, we're talking about emergency services here, is the need for individual assistance. I'm in direct contact and communicating with our federal officials, finding out what the status of that is. We still don't have individual assistance declaration yet. I don't know if we're going to get it, but I would encourage everybody to keep uploading their information to that state website that's on my legislator Facebook page. It's on the county website and it's on the town website. So continue to upload that. One thing that came up last night in this meeting, and we're talking about all these hazards and dirt roads and mitigating all of this. We're due in, I think, less than 2 years to renew our hazard mitigation plan. And this is a great time to take all that inventory. We're hearing from our constituents. I'm visiting properties myself. I'm meeting DOT actually on certain properties to negotiate state roads and the damage to private property and the damage to the state roads. And those are really important details to keep track of now. So when it's time to do that plan, which is a very cumbersome thing to do, this hazard mitigation plan, we're required by law, by state law, to do it every 5 years.
We
So
have our group meeting, I believe it's the 14th. Or
Yeah.
Their Stormwater Action Group, our SWAG.
your swag.
Our
I
swag.
love those. I love those meetings. Those are really
So
fun.
it's a collaborative between the villages and the town, and Max is going to oversee that
That's
operation.
awesome.
So,
So I want to make it really quick because you've been here a long time. I just really wanted to welcome Chris. And it comes at a great time, as you know, and thank you so much for hosting Senator Gillibrand here in this beautiful room. It was, fast and furious getting everybody together, and to have her present in this room announcing, her federal legislation to combat this crisis. But we also have things on the county level. We did receive opioid settlement funds. We will be receiving more. We haven't spent a portion of it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that is going to be spent. Other counties have declared specifics about how it's going to be sent, and I'm hoping that we can, the reason why the hub was established was because we didn't have services here in Philipstown, and we did it on our own like we always do. And I'm hoping that we can get some great assistance from the county and continue to get that opioid settlement money, because we're due for a lot more. And I'm always here for questions.
thanks for representing me that day. It was-
Yeah, no, they really wanted you, but they
Oh,
got
yeah.
stuck with me, and I'm really sorry. But
I'm sure you did a much better job.
and I'm
than I
sorry. Thank you, Deputy Supervisor Flaherty, for getting there. I know it wasn't easy, and it was last minute. We had representatives from the hub, and I'm sorry you couldn't make it, but we had your great representative Rebecca Pearsall, and representatives from the village, both villages, all of Nelsonville came out, which was wonderful to see.
Officer in charge, Burke.
An officer in charge, Burke, and the county executive, and our Senator Rollison, and Congressman Lawler.
Right.
We're all, and I'm probably missing somebody.
St. Christopher's Inn.
And St. Christopher's Inn, yeah. So, lots of work to be done. We keep losing people, and we don't want to keep losing people. So let's put that money to good work, and thank you so much for your work. So meaningful. Thank you. If you have any questions for me, always.
Anybody got any questions for me? Okay,
We have the vape drop-off box that,
oh yeah, that's right, we got a new.
downstairs, we have a new drop-off box. Bob, you were here for that.
Yeah, it's a vape, people can drop off their vape, unused vape containers downstairs.
Box.
Downstairs.
So if
That's
you
what
have
it
old
is.
vapes you want to get rid of, we have a container to put them in, so.
Not sure why the Medicaid back box is taking.
That's it.
That is the
Rubber.
box.
That's the same box.
It's the
but
same box.
We,
Use it for vets too.
No.
It's
But
strictly
it was the
vape.
same box. They put a new sticker on it. That's what they did. But
we were no longer acceptable to being the state, and it's at Drug World, so there is
Drug World has
a
one.
reception place at Drug World. So if you have drugs, they can go to Drug World. We could no longer do it, so we are not a police station, we're not a medical facility, so we no longer met the criteria, even though we put the cameras in and everything. Right.
well, we had it for what, five?
Yeah, we had it
what,
at the
4 or 5 years
VFW,
at
and it
least.
came back up here. So.
We did 6 years. Okay.
But it's now being repurposed as a vape drop box, so you can drop your little vape cigarettes, e-cigarettes into that container, which makes me a little nervous with the batteries, but they did do some background and they said it's okay, it's safe, as long as they're not there more than 6 months, which they've been.
Tara was also looking at putting a blind on that window so there wouldn't be any
Keep the
heat
sun
on the
up.
box.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, step up. Absolutely.
I've never actually spoken before in this town hall for a town board meeting. When I first got elected to the state assembly, one of the things I tried to do was emulate the member of the assembly that actually represented this town, Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff. When I was on the planning board in the town of Putnam Valley, one of the things I noticed going to town board meetings is sometimes randomly this nice lady would just pop in and just listen in on a meeting on her way back from Albany. So I always thought that was a good practice. I did that in the assembly. And as county executive, I don't have the time to do it in every town board, but when I have the opportunity to do it, my wife had her schedule, her shift change at work, so she's not working the overnight, so she's home with the little one. So I was like, you know what, let me stop by Philipstown and say my hellos. I just want to say it's been a pleasure to work with you, supervisor, members of the town board. There's a lot of things that we talked about, the state of the county and the county government, but just a few things that I wrote on chicken scratch driving all the way. Well, I wasn't driving. I was with Matt for my chief of staff. I was making chicken scratch, making some notes. The town really spoke up to protect our Hudson River, And we joined regionally with our partners and our neighbors in Westchester County, Orange, and Rockland to push back. And I know Assemblywoman Levenberg pushed hard to pass legislation to protect our Hudson River from Holtec discharging wastewater. We worked with villages, towns, and the counties on some other issues. We met right here, actually, I think, with Legislator Montgomery, town officials, and the village about the trolley issue. We've worked together. The town sent correspondence to my office regarding the Memorial Day banners. And we worked together to try to help get an agreement with utilities. There's a number of visits that we've made to Philipstown. I feel like I've been in this town more than almost any other, rather except for maybe Carmel. But we had a youth court graduation here earlier this year, first time we were able to do that. And that started, quite frankly, with the previous administration. That's something, it's a nice thing that I inherited that I think Legislator Montgomery and many others advocated for. Very happy to see that. We spent time at the Hub, Boscobel, Magazino, have a new outreach worker, Joanne Torres, over at the Senior Center. Legislator Montgomery talked about Senator Gillibrand's visit. We've been through multiple emergencies. The storm response, Supervisor, you talked about it a lot. I remember, I think you emailed at 9:30 a.m. This giant group of people that did that survey.
Yeah.
And immediately we reached out to Bob Lipton, and the tool that we have access to as the county is New York Response, which a deputy commissioner is very familiar with, to get resources from the state. So it's nice. It doesn't always work out the way we want, but when it does, it's nice when things work out. We have a new ALS provider, and I want to just give a little bit of a shout out to one of Philipstown's natives. Chris Tobin was very helpful. He was on the ALS advisory committee that helped the folks over in the Bureau of Emergency Services. So I wanted to thank Chris Tobin for his work on that. And just a few other things. A lot of things that we're working on actively. The stabilization center, but I'm really happy that Legislator Montgomery mentioned up the opioid settlement funds. A little bit of a preview. It should be announced tomorrow. It's something we've been actively working on. It was mentioned in the legislature and the committee, working on an RFP process to open it up. When I first got elected, there was a very big issue with Putnam, the Prevention Council. I didn't feel comfortable giving all of the opioid settlement money to one nonprofit. As great as they may be, there's a lot of nonprofits and organizations that are going to help with their mission, help those people in need, and address some of the harm that was done by these bad actors and pharmaceutical companies. So by doing it with an RFP, we can open it up to others, and that's supposed to be announced hopefully tomorrow. We've been working on that actively, but that way, that's separate from the budget process. That way, county government doesn't hoard those dollars, and it gets into the people where it needs most and can actually make the biggest difference. That's just a few things that we've been working on. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Supervisor. If you've got questions, I'm happy to help try to answer them. Legislator mentioned a town hall in Putnam Valley. That was yesterday. One of the things I committed to when I first got elected was to do town halls in every town. We haven't scheduled one in Philipstown yet. We've been very busy, but obviously it's something that I do want to do and I plan to do.
Happy to have you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for making the trip over tonight. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And
The
Upper
one night I
Station
didn't wear
Road,
a
County
tie.
Road, that was, we surveyed that too. There was drainage ripped out of the ground right through that blacktop. During the emergency procurement, we were able to get contract. I think Paline was the company, and did a lot of that work over in Garrison. So
Yeah, Upper
Station Road, yeah. I mean, it was. I actually ran into the homeowner. Who was very angry because his whole entire basement was flooded. I think the gentleman was from England. But the good news was, to your point, to mitigation. As they were doing the work, they were able to hopefully reconstruct some of the drainage to make improvements so that doesn't happen again. Obviously, we don't want that scale of a storm again, but to the extent that we can mitigate that in the future, we want to do that.
Each storm, we learn a little more.
Absolutely.
We have a new curb machine, which is going to be very busy over the next few weeks, putting new blacktop curb on some areas that are flooding homes because the water's coming onto our road from private property, crossing our road or going down our road and not finding the culverts, but finding people's basements. So we're going to work on improving those as well. So.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming over here. If you don't mind, just one question while you're here. In the past, we were able to work closely with the county and discuss sharing sales tax as they were additional sales tax that went above the projection of the county from a budget year, which kind of protected the county's fiscal security. And we had one first sales tax sharing year. And as we kind of face these sorts of emergencies and road problems, having more funding at the local level would help. I know the county has a very large reserve balance right now, a historic reserve balance. Do you think in the future you would have open the door to talking about ways to share surplus sales tax revenues with localities in a way that may help them?
I think there's opportunities that we can talk about to help support local governments, where there's a strategic value to the county government and local government. Historically, going back to the sales tax revenue, I think it was back in the 1970s, county governments were given the opportunity to collect sales tax revenue, and that's predominantly when all of a sudden county governments started taking on a portion of the Medicaid costs. So there's been decades and decades of budgets that have been built based on that financing model. I know the previous county executive, as she was headed out the door, all of a sudden had a change of heart. I think some people might question why that happened, in that type of timing. The dollar, it was also just important to note, when they did it last year, it's not like any other county. So when people say share sales tax revenue, and you have a Westchester or a Dutchess, what they do, they actually share an actual a percentage of the sales tax. Putnam County didn't do that. What they did was they essentially said, okay, we have more sales tax money than we projected, and then they picked a number. It wasn't really, it's somewhat arbitrary. It was about $5 million in ARPA funding that they got from the federal government, and then they took $5 million from the general fund, so about $10 million actually ended up being, I think it was ended up close to be 12, but and gave it to local governments. Oh, $2 million was to school for school safety, so that's if you count that. That's where that money came. Coincidentally, if you add up all the ARPA money collectively, now obviously not for just for Philipstown, I wouldn't have that number on top of my head, but countywide, it was about $10 million that they got from the federal government. So it almost matched that number. It's very different. I think when we present our 2024 budget based on how those meetings go over the next several months with our departments, there's models for other opportunities to partner. Dutchess County does some very creative things I'm interested in that I think could be possible in Putnam County. I think it's important to have an RFP model, at least with opioid settlement money. I think that's something that maybe can be emulated, but you want to make sure it's used properly. I haven't been supportive and don't support just cutting a check and just giving it to local governments, where then I'm basically abdicating any sort of control over where that money's going to go. The town of Kent might do something that you completely disagree with, and you might do something that Kent completely disagrees with. If we have more money than we need, I'd rather keep it in the pockets of taxpayers. Dutchess County also did something that was interesting. If we had the financial ability to do it, I would be open to it. They eliminated sales tax where it is the most regressive, where it's for those lower costing items under $110, clothing and footwear. A lot of people may not realize this, but there's no state sales tax on those items. The state acknowledges that sales tax is regressive and that it is unfair to those who have lesser means. So if you limit that sales tax, and right now, because of online sales tax, a lot of those people are actual residents. The whole benefit of consumption-based taxation and sales tax from people that are visitors coming into your town, it's the whole game is changing. Because of online sales, you're going to see a lot of it being based on where people live and ordering on Amazon. But that's something I'm interested in too, because that would be a way of sharing sales tax by keeping it in your pocket.
Well, if you're ever open to a conversation about that, because that idea of sharing the surplus and just a portion of it was borrowed from Dutchess County and County Executive Molinaro. But if you're ever interested in having a conversation and it makes sense that the county would think about an RFP process, we would love to have that conversation with you as sales tax grows.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Right now, they're like, $3.1 million ahead. Right now, the county's $3.1 million ahead of what they projected.
Oh, yeah, it was a report too, yes. It was right now, yes. I mentioned ALS too. I only meant ALS providers. It is something that we do that's unique. I know the previous administration would talk all about this is what the county government does, that we don't charge back Board of Elections. One thing I don't think was ever really highlighted enough is that Putnam County is the only county government that I know of in the state where the county government really provides the coverage, the 365 coverage for paramedic services. So I understand there's obviously a lot of, there's going to be, I think Garrison already signed with Empress, and there's going to be a lot of discussions with individual departments because state laws have changed and there's a chargeback for ALS. Predominantly that's to collect insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, but the coverage, why they're there, even when there's not a call, the county's paying $2.7 million every single year for that contract, $8.1 million for 3 years. And we just had to put in another $600,000 through the legislature just to fund it for the end of this, remainder of this year. If you call up our friends in Dutchess County or in Westchester County or in Orange County and Rockland County, and you ask, for example, the town of Paulding, how much does Dutchess County give to the town of Paulding to cover that? The answer is zero. So that to me is actually a very important, shared service, one that could be highlighted. And I'm not going to say that every other county should do it. I think it works for Putnam. Putnam, the size of our county geographically, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of towns on their own, they may not have the call volume to actually financially sustain their own contract with an ALS provider. It just doesn't make sense. So even though Carmel might be able to sustain their own contract, so the county absorbing that, taking that on, I think is a really important service. And when we talk about functions of county, of any level of government, health and safety always have to be at the top of the list. So
Well spent.
that's a bit, yes, absolutely. And it was 1.5 million with the previous company, and now it's 2.7. So nearly doubled. So and there's a lot of reasons for that. So,
We'll be in
but thank
touch.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and stopping in.
Yes. Sure, come on up.
My name is Madeline Ray. I live in Garrison. And a quick dirt road thing I'd like to share with you is that, everybody finds it difficult to put together IKEA furniture without a manual. If you put together IKEA furniture, it's going to break apart or it's going to just fall apart or break. So there's also manuals for dirt road maintenance. And these manuals explain how to do it. I brought a few here.
Light reading.
Yes, exactly. The Center for Dirt Road Research has a dirt road manual. See, I brought the State of Maine has a dirt road manual. The Ditch in Time, which is New Hampshire's dirt road manual. The Colorado has its own dirt road manual.
We probably have ours own at the highway department too.
We have Vermont has a dirt road manual, and of course, the granddaddy of them all, the federal government, the transportation department has a gravel dirt road manual. And the author of this book, his name is Ken Scorseth, and he wrote the manual, and he's considered the authority of dirt road maintenance. And in 2016, the Old Road Society sponsored Ken Scorseth to come to Philipstown and to walk our dirt roads, our unpaved roads, and then to give a report to the town. I'm sure you remember, Supervisor. I'm not sure if everybody else knows about this, but he came back and he wrote a report about our dirt roads, and he created this manual of the authority on dirt road maintenance. He created a manual just for Philipstown dirt roads. He came all the way from South Dakota to create our very own dirt road manual. I'm sure you've seen it and read it. I don't know if other people have, but again, he's the authority. And in 2016, he spoke of many problems with our roads and came up with solutions to our roads.
And we implemented a majority of them
Because
and
material, maintenance,
changed it. Yeah.
and his material gives you a chart on how to formulate the material. And I am one of those people that when you were talking about material, that we do have loose material. Our town is buying loose material from gravel yards without any binder. We need a binder to bring everything together. Our suppliers give us sand and gravel and anything they want, and they put it in a big bin, and they call it item 4, and we buy this material, and it's loose and it doesn't bind, and it washes away. And Ken Scorseth wrote about that. And the other thing he wrote about was the maintenance, and it's the maintenance of this material, which is still a problem today. We have this loose material without a binder, and it's thrown on our roads, and cars go over it, and they break the rocks, and you have dust because there's no binder on it. So we can ask our gravel yards to give us material with binders on it, or we can add it ourselves. And when we maintain this loose material that is along the roads, there's about a 12-inch, 6 to 12-inch berm that's put along the side of the road of this loose material. So this berm keeps the water on the road. And so when we have these rains, the rains wash away a 6 to 12-inch berm of loose material into our streams and our lakes and our creeks, and this water stays on the road, and the water continues to make a gully down the side of the road, and the water goes down and down and down, and we get these big gullies, and they're called secondary ditches. And this is what we can do. The most important thing that we can do is following the manuals, not spending millions of dollars on paving, but follow these manuals. Other states do it with great success. Vermont has the most unpaved roads in the nation, 8,500 miles, which is also 55% of their roads are unpaved, 55. They're all local roads.
We're about the same ratio. We have 33 miles of dirt road.
Okay, they have 8,500, excuse me.
Right, for the state of Vermont. This
Yes,
is the
and
town.
they're all local roads. So collectively, they have the most. They are all local roads, and they have steeper slopes than we do. And so they can do it, and they can maintain these roads, and so can we. And right now, we're at the best time to do this. The chance to fix our damaged roads is now, because we can be proactive, and we
Madeline,
can fix
I
these.
have to stop you because we took that manual, we implemented the plan, we changed the mixture of the soil, and the berms you're talking about that are on the side of the road, behind those are stone walls that also funnel the water into these roads. They're unique. We're not Vermont, and I understand there's steeper slopes, but we have case studies here in the town of Philipstown that if these roads were not paved, I don't care what material was on them, they would have been gone. So we can debate this all night, which I'm not going to do.
But I would
I'm not
like to
doing
finish
this.
to this board that maybe some of them don't know, or to the public, that some of these people don't know, and this is a public hearing. And I do believe, not a public hearing, but it's a public comments time of a town board. I misspoke. It's a public comments time. And I think all these states do it with great results, and we should be no different. And we can invest in material and maintenance, and we can invest in knowledge and understanding of these dirt roads, and we can invest in following the manuals. And let's choose a manual and follow it, and we can invest in keeping the rural character of Philipstown.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vacancies. We have one vacancy on the Rec Commission. If you're interested in the Recreation Department, this is a great group to be a part of. You make a lot of the baseline decisions for the Rec Department. So there is one vacancy there, which we will advertise. And unfortunately, with the loss of Lenny Lim, we do have an opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. So if you know anybody that's interested in
We had
that.
an awful lot of applicants last time for the planning board. Maybe one of those would consider going on to the zoning board.
Kelly, have we advertised? I don't know if we've
I don't
advertised.
think so.
No, we have
No.
not.
All right, so we should authorize the clerk to advertise for that. Can I get a motion to authorize the town clerk to advertise for one opening on the Recreation Commission and one on the Zoning Board of Appeals?
So,
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, approval of vouchers, general.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Highway,
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye. Continental Village Park District?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye. Continental Village Water District?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
All right, so we're meeting next Wednesday then, right?
No,
Oh, I thought we said we were gonna meet something.
September,
Jason got that handled.
September 13th.
See, so we didn't have to do it. All right, so September 13th.